So today I have 3 affordable, undervalued CGC 9.8 comics to recommend. And these 3 books I think are making a lot of sense right now. And yeah, certainly we'll get into all the details for each one here. So let's have a look. First one up is a Mortal Kombat #1 in the 9.8 from 1994. This one's the Blood and Thunder storyline, but it's going to go down as pretty much the first Mortal Kombat comic book, or the first appearance of Mortal Kombat in comics. And, you know, I know for sure there's got to be like some Mortal Kombat advertisement or something that predates this one. Absolutely. But this is pretty much the first Mortal Kombat comic book. And you know what? For me, I think the popularity of Mortal Kombat is a little bit underappreciated. So I think it makes sense that this one's, you know, pretty undervalued. And I think the pricing shows that as well in the 9.8. We'll have a look here. There's 17 9.8s in the blue label. So a 1 of 17 if you're a huge Mortal Kombat fan. That's looking awesome. 53.1%, the 9.8 percentage, 9.8 ratio of all graded copies. 53.1% of them are 9.8s. Not a, you know, super special relative rarity. It's so undergraded, so it's more about the 1 of 17. So in the first print for Mortal Kombat #1 in the 9.8, seeing a few sell for $139.95. Most recent one selling for $159.95. So kind of $140 to $160 for a 1 of those 17. First Mortal Kombat comic. I think that's a pretty great value, absolutely. I think you want to consider this one in the raw, to be honest. There's not any 9.8s on eBay for this one in the first print right now. And I was actually considering maybe purchasing a raw comic in this one in the first print. So in the raw, I think in a near mint, you can do anywhere from like $10 to $30 US dollars. And I think that's still kind of worth it. And, you know, maybe you'll send it to CGC. Hopefully you get another 9.8. This is a Malibu comic too. So, you know, likely going to be lower printed than like a DC or a Marvel comic from the early 90s for sure. I also saw a few other versions of this one sell in the 9.8. There's a variant version. It's got like Goro and a few other characters on the cover. Saw that one sell for just over $100 in the 9.8. I didn't write that one down. I think it was like $109.99 or something. But I also saw the limited edition hologram cover of this one in the 9.8 sell for $199.99. So $200 for that one, we'll call it. So, you know, maybe you're really serious about this one. You go after that limited edition hologram one, which looks really cool for $200. I think that's a pretty cool value. But for 1 of those 17 in the first print, you get that classic, you know, Mortal Kombat symboled cover for $140 to $160. I think that's looking like a great value right now. And it's, yeah, for a 9.8, that's affordable too. Absolutely. So Mortal Kombat #1 from 1994 is one to consider. All right, next one, such a cool one. Uncanny XMen #205. This is certainly like a secondary key issue that I'm sure, you know, some X-Men fans are familiar with. It's origin of Lady Deathstrike. So Lady Deathstrike kind of gets the Weapon X treatment basically in this one. Doing a little research, I found that this issue, it's sort of the first glimpse or prototype of the body shop, which is basically, you know, the inner workings of, you know, a shop that's going to be working on someone like Lady Deathstrike or Wolverine. Now, I kind of make the distinction of not saying that, you know, this body shop is the sort of Weapon X government agency that worked on Wolverine, because they don't really go that far with it. But I'm pretty sure this is the first time you kind of see the experimental shop that, you know, weapon type mutants are being experimented on in comic books. So I think that's a little bit underappreciated about this one, on top of it, you know, it being the origin of Lady Deathstrike. Another thing that kind of perplexes me about this is on the cover, you pretty much see Wolverine Weapon X being worked on, which pretty much for me, I think, and I want to appeal to the team, maybe there's an earlier appearance, but this is pretty much the first like Wolverine Weapon X prototype where you see kind of Wolverine being experimented on kind of thing. I know like Weapon X is mentioned in Incredible Hulk 180. So, you know, Weapon X is mentioned and, you know, they say Wolverine's been worked on and stuff like that, certainly. But I'm pretty sure this is where the first comic book where you actually see that, or at least a prototype of that happening. And then eventually Barry Windsor Smith, who does the art on this issue and a little bit of the story, I believe, eventually goes on to do Marvel Comics Presents 72 and that whole Weapon X origin. So this is kind of a prototype of that, basically. But what does perplex me, Weapon X is on the cover. Wolverine doesn't get experimented inside this issue. It's like, so it's almost like a tease. Like, I don't know why Wolverine's on the cover getting worked on when they don't really talk about it in the issue that much. But that happens in comic books, certainly. But, you know, if this really is Wolverine Weapon X, this might be the first appearance on the cover of Weapon X Wolverine, like, being experimented on. And I say Weapon X Wolverine, you know, is he Weapon X? Yes, but then Weapon X is in the name of the government agency that worked on Wolverine, basically. But then I was doing a little bit more research about Weapon X and finding that Weapon X, the X numeral, is actually a Roman numeral. So it actually means Weapon 10. Wolverine was kind of the 10th person to be, you know, worked on by the Weapon X agency, I guess is how you could as how I understood it. But what was cool was the first ever Weapon X is the Super Soldier experiment with Captain America. So that's Weapon 1, basically, Wolverine's Weapon 10. And then X-23 is kind of the 23rd, you know, clone of Wolverine, or Weapon X, or whatever. There's kind of, you can kind of get lost in the terms, but I think Uncanny X-Men 205 and the 9.8 is one to think about, and it's a bit underappreciated and undervalued, I think, for all those reasons. 266 9.8s in the blue label, 36.9%. The 9.8 percentage. So of all graded copies, 36.9% of them are CGC 9.8s. So having a look at some completed sales for Uncanny X-Men 205. It's looking like a good value, affordable, under 200, I think, for a 9.8. Seen one sell for $129. Also saw one sell for $169.99. So, you know, maybe $130 to $170 the range on this one. And, you know, if one's like perfectly centered in a new case, just looking awesome, I'd be tempted to pay up to $200 for this one. I think it's kind of worth that, given, you know, some of, you know, what I think is a little bit underappreciated about Wolverine and Weapon X in this comic book. So Uncanny X-Men 205, definitely an affordable, undervalued 9.8 to consider. All right, last one. It can really fit into anyone's collection, I think, and it's one I've sort of wanted many times in the past. A Marvel Age number 41 in the CGC 9.8 with a classic Stan Lee cover. Yeah, certainly. This is just a cool one for the price, I think. Anything Stan the Man is just awesome to have. I've been on record as saying I really need a signature series book signed by Stan Lee. And really, I don't even think I'd be here if it wasn't for Stan Lee. So any kind of Stan Lee collector item is pretty cool, I think. And for the price, this one's making so much sense, I think. And it has for a while. Yeah, I'm kind of hitting myself for not, you know, getting over the line on this one. I do want one of these. 128 9.8s in the blue label, so one of 128. Stan Lee collector item is pretty awesome. Even better, this one signed by Stan Lee is a lot of money. I probably should have looked up some of those prices of this one signed by Stan Lee, but it's way more than just the blue label. 29.2%, the 9.8 ratio. So some prices in the 9.8 blue label, not signed by Stan Lee. One going for $159.99 and another selling for $165. So yeah, this is just one you can absolutely enjoy. You know, we're pretty much all here because of Stan Lee, basically, and you know, he's done so much for the hobby, absolutely. This is a really cool collector item, a one of 128, and certainly under 200. I think it's unaffordable, undervalued 9.8. All right, just a quick list of 3 today. I'll have the list in the description below if you want to have a quick look. But yeah, good to get through, you know, a few affordable, undervalued ones that are, as I said, I think, you know, kind of a short list here, but they're all just, you know, really making a lot of sense to me of why they would be undervalued. So, yeah, I kind of wanted to deep dive into these 3 9.8s that I think are pretty undervalued right now. All right, team. Well, we'll leave it at that, though. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Hey, team, if you're liking this content, please subscribe and hit that bell, and I'll keep you updated on future videos.